but the slides are there. Okay.
Yes, and
Okay.
it's very important for the second part of the teaching, so of the EFES part. So
yes, yes. So welcome back. And in the first part, we have attempted preliminarily to put an epigraphic text into an EpiDoc template in Oxygen and assign a schema to it and see how it works. And we also did some basic encoding, which, with the aid of the materials that you already have at your disposal, you can continue by yourself. And we can do this together, but it's pretty straightforward. As you will see, not in the exact place, but the exact same thing we did with the os of euxamenos, you can do with the all the other instances of square brackets. More or less, this is what is underlined and emphasized every time at every EpiDoc training, and Gabi made sure to emphasize it yet once again yesterday. There is a pretty straightforward correspondence between the editorial sigla, the so-called Leiden conventions, and what we do in EpiDoc. So this is basically a slightly different way to express the same thing, and they come out at the output, as you will see with EFES, the same way that they should, that they would be in a paper edition. So yes, what holds true for supplied reason lost as a replacement of the square brackets in this word should also be done with NaO, with the omega, and with all the other instances of things not actually present on the stone itself, but restored by the editor, which in that case is not very hard to do, because they're contextually absolutely unambiguous. We have some other things here, but first I would like to turn your attention to several stuff which we may want to do before going with the encoding of personal names and things like that. And I will just walk you through the all the materials that can you see my whole screen, or now you can see my my Oxygen?
No, you haven't shared anything yet.
Okay, I will share my screen. So yes, you now you see the Oxygen thing. I was discussing these stuff in square brackets, and yes, you can go on with the numbering of the line breaks, and here you can also, when you put the line break on number 7, you can also say break no, because we have a word which is transferred to the next line in the inscription, and in the usual transformation scenarios that are employed by EFES, this would automatically render this dash here, so you don't need to keep it, you can do away with it. Otherwise, you will have in the output, you will have probably 2 dashes, because it keeps the one as a simple alphanumeric symbol, and the other one is automatically added by the reading of this code. So the same holds true for the next line. But probably what you would want to do is to make a word list containing all the instances of words such as examenos or vomon or something like that, and that in their regularized form. This is a feature which is present in almost all the epigraphic projects. I will show you here, for example, the inscriptions of Aphrodisias. There were indices. Okay, here you have words, and you have the words distributed by lemmata. So you have the normalized form of the words. You have, for example, the word, the verb ago, and it comes in all the different forms in different inscriptions, but here they are in one list. How do you do this? First thing, you need to encode separately every word as such, which leads us to the first of our afternoon presentations about words and lemmatization. Well, this starts from very afar, but yes, here the notion of lemmatization and also tokenization are introduced, and we talk about word tags and also incomplete words. So this is an inscription IRT. This is the project, the collection called Inscriptions from Roman Tripolitania. I haven't put it in the list of links, but I could add it later. And here, as you can see, as in most of, I should say, pre-modern inscriptions, the text is in scriptio continua. There are no word separators, excluding some interlinear points, which are treated as special characters in EpiDoc, and we will come to this later. And let's say you have this line, omnium justissimo moderatori, which obviously contains 3 words in the diplomatic version of the edition when the text is preserved as it is present on the stone itself. It should look something like this, but we would like it separated word by word for the sake of better searching or better rendering it better amenable to indexing and things like that, which is in the world of annotation is referred to as tokenizing. Every word is a separate token. And of course, when you do the proper edition of the monument, and you will see in EFES, the text automatically comes in both forms, in the diplomatic form and as an what they call in EFES an interpretive edition, with minuscule characters, all the editorial corrections and additions and so on and so forth. So you don't need to worry about that. There are automatic transformations in between one and the other. But what you would like to do is probably not only separate words between each other, because as we saw, spaces are significant in reading XML. Also, you would probably like to tag them as words, which is done by the word tag, which is a W. But this word tag gives you only the forms. It gives you omnium or justissimo or moderatori. If you have other examples with other word forms from the same words, you would like, for example, this to point to the first thing to point to the adjective omnis, and a moderatori to point to the word moderator, and also be indexed together with all the other forms of the same word that might occur in our corpus. What we would like to do is yet another thing called lemmatizing. We add an attribute when we give the regularized form of the word to be used as a lemma in the index. And later, when you transform it and create indexes and facets and filters with EFES, you will see that you can make indexes of both word forms and lemmas. And you can make indices which specify both if needed. So this is the way you do it. You give the regularized form and the official dictionary form of the word in an attribute called lemma. You can also point to an external dictionary with an attribute called lemmaref. A ref stands for reference. This here are references to the word form and the lemma in the Perseus dictionary tools. You can use other available online dictionary resources if there are any, which suit better your project. But here, this slide serves to remind you that you need not lemmatize internally for your project the word. You can point to an external list of lemmas, such as an online dictionary. But you cannot do both, or at least not with the same, at least not with these attributes. I don't think that if you put both lemma and lemmaref, it will allow you, but and you can also have an internal dictionary stored in a separate XML file, which could be a part of the so-called authority files, of which we will discuss them at multiple occasions in this training. There are separate XML files which have a structure of their own. The syntax is the same, it's XML, but they're more like lists of items. So they don't have TI header with description of metadata and so on and so forth. There are some exemplary authorities that come together with some exemplary monuments that come with your installations of EFES, so you can check the respective folder to see them once you come to work with them. But you can have an internal list of words, an internal list of lemmas, to which this lemmaref could refer. This value of the attribute here says that you go to the file which is called dictionary XML, and you search for the XML ID after this sign, which I don't know how to call in English. And then you search for an XML ID which reads omnis. And then when you make your index of words, it will refer to an internal dictionary rather than some external source. So this is also possible to do. And as you see, this also holds true for the tagging of persons and the tagging of places. So basically, with ordinary words and with person names and place names, there are general rules which are equivalent, as you will see in a while. But here we deal with common nouns and verbs, more or less. So yes, you can index it from the XML, or you can index it from an authority list, as stated here, or you can refer to an external source. About the incomplete words, this is an inscription of Roman Cyrenaica, another project, and here you have, it's very legible, but here you obviously have a word which is incomplete. Prosopography auton EP something, and then you have a gap of several characters missing. It's up to you as an editor to state how much characters you're missing. But say you have 3 or 4 characters missing, judging from the lines which are above and below, which have more of them reserved. So what do you do? It depends. It depends on the project that you're working on. It's not obligatory. Actually, very few things are obligatory, but you have to decide for yourself. And I would say that most of the projects do this, because if you have a corpus of monuments, probably you yourself and the people who are using your corpus, they would like to know, especially if the corpus is big enough, they would probably like to know what kind of words are used, how frequently, in what types of monuments. And it's not obligatory, but probably this is one of the features that you would want to have. But of course, everything is it's up to you to decide. It's the same way as with the edition of a printed corpus. You as editors decide what's of importance and what's not so important for you. So yeah. Oh, I'll mention it. So yes, here of course you put a gap. And if you don't know how to restore the word, otherwise you wouldn't put a gap, you would put a supply and the rest of the words according to you in the supply tag. But if you don't know how to do this, you of course don't lemmatize. But you can say that this is a partially attested word. And then if you think your project needs this, we have done away with that, but this is one of the default indices which come with EFES. You can have an index of fragmentary words, and you can of course indicate which part of the word is preserved. I for initial, F for final, M for medial, and yes or no, I don't know. They probably if this is a part of the word or this is not part of it. I don't know. I have never used that, but at least if you use a part, you can specify which part of the words, according to you, is that. Here, it is obviously that the word starts with epi. It's not somewhere in the middle. And it's probably in this context, which is very poor, but still it was obvious to the editor that ona is at the end of a word, or tagm, which is middle part of the word, which was either syntagma or something like that, or prostagma. And you can also have, okay, this is a bit complex, but we'll run through this. You can also have an abbreviation, which is not complete, but maybe this we can deal with when we come to abbreviations. Yeah, this one here says that we cannot cross the tags between words and the parts of the text which are supplied. But you have to do both, because we have full words here which are in the restored part and partial restoration of other words. So you have to make sure that you don't overlap tags. I'm reminding you that every element, together with its opening and an ending tag and everything in between, should be wholly nested within another element. You cannot start tagging the word soteria and the supplied part to end here, because your XML editor will say that will read this as this is the starting tag of this, and here it will say that your starting and your ending tag don't match, and it will give you a mistake, and you will not be able to validate your file because you know, it reads the text, which is the XML encoding. It reads it linearly. Once it sees an opening tag, it waits for the closing tag right away after the content of the element. So this is not admissible. So what do we do here? We tag the whole supplied thing as we tag the whole hyper, the whole word hyper, as supplied. Then the word soterias, we tag it as a word, and we specify the supplied parts in it. I don't know if you're able to completely follow me, because at some point the code becomes a bit. You have to watch out when you follow it and when you do it. But then you end up after putting the starting and the ending tags of all the supplieds, you'll end up with something like this. This is supplied, this is supplied, this is supplied, and this is supplied. And because these are cases which are far too often, what the code does is that it ignores the closing and the opening brackets of a restored lacuna, and gives everything without them. And there you go, there you have what you needed to have: separate words together with the word gaps, encoded together with the supplied lacunae, without any overlapping of starting and ending tags. I hope that you were able to follow the last one, but you know, the main summary of all this is that the W tag tags grammatical words, not necessarily orthographic. It doesn't normalize. You can add an attribute. This is the common way to designate an attribute, a freestanding attribute. Lemma, which gives you the head words. You can give an attribute to lemmaref, which points to a definition of the word somewhere. And if you want to do also linguistic tagging of your corpus, you can use tags such as POS, which is part of speech. If it's important to you, and I would say that in most corpora of historical documents, people have chosen not to be as grammatically specific. But if it's important to you for some reason, you can also tag the word as a part of speech, something. This is a verb, this is an adverb, this is an adjective. And there is a whole lot of others, grammatical tags. You can also tag the tense, the case, the mood, I don't know what, if you're making a linguistic corpus, but probably this is out of the scope of your actual goals that you would like to work on in your project. And you can have, of course, an attribute which says that the word in the edition, not on the stone, in the edition, is incomplete, which means that even in the normalized and editorial text, you don't know how to restore it. So this is it. So if you want all of the words here, you can tokenize and also lemmatize. I would say that this is something that is not present in the presentation, but I would say that probably if you want to make a word index to your corpus, you don't want any words such as ek, kai, the definite article ho, he, and things like that to pop up in all the possible examples in which they are contained. So those words, for example, in our project, in the Telemon project, which I'll show you on Friday, we don't lemmatize this. You only say that these are some sort of word forms. So it gives you, when you click on the Control E or Command E, it gives you the last tag that you've used. So this is really lemma, and here you can write in Greek. And etc. and so on and so forth. So yes, you can do this with all the words that you have in your text. But of course, there are words which do not have a common reference. They refer to specific people or places or organizations or events, which are usually called the so-called named entities, of which the most important that you have and that you might want to also index in your project. I haven't seen a project without these, are the persons and the places. Here you can see, for example, attested names. And these attested names here are divided between emperors, divinities, mythical persons, etc., for which you need a separate authority list for this. But yes, probably you would like to have something like this. You would like to have a place name index in your collection. Okay. So what you do is more or less an equivalent to what you did with the lemmatization of common words. Here, the task is a bit more complex because you have to take care of both the prosopography and the onomastics of your corpus, which means that you can link a given instance of a name to a prosopographical list, which will usually be contained in an authority list, and or you can simply tag it as a name, and you can abstain from further identification if this say Petros and that Petros in another inscription are or are not one and the same person. So what you need to do here is both tag the occurrences in a text and also link it in different ways to internal or external authority lists in order to indicate separate persons. And as with the words, the head words and the word forms, here you can also have an index of names and an index of attested persons, which could be separate if you wish and if you think it's necessary. And besides, for persons, this is important, you can distinguish between persons which are emperors, royalties, I don't know what, persons which are officials, persons which are religious functionaries, persons which are common people, persons which are mythological or divinical or saintly personages, and things like that, for which you can have separate authority lists. So yeah, here's a bit about prosopography, which is structured data about historical persons. And in a prosopographical list, you can have for each and every item described in XML authority list, you can have also things like biography, date of birth and death, date of floroid, and etc., etc. You can indicate relationships between persons. If you make a authority list of a person, you can indicate that so-and-so is the son or daughter of so-and-so, that they're colleagues, that they have been mentioned together in one monument and things like that. Whereas in a simple onomastical list, you have simply a lexicon of names, which, especially in case of ancient inscriptions, can deal with different types of names depending on the period, the region, and things like the civic status or the ethnicity of the person which is tagged. You know that in antiquity there was a typical Greek way of indicating names, which was a name and a patronym. Socrates, the son of somebody of Apollodorus, say, and there is a typical Roman way of nominating people with the three nomina, the three names, Marcus, Ulpius, Trajanus, and you can have all the different variations in between those, especially in the provinces. You have an imperial titulature, especially for the Roman emperors, which could be included in the name if you wish, and so on and so forth. So here about the authority lists. Here, this is how an authority list of persons looks like. You see, it starts its root element. The root element of all the lists is list something. This is list person. And in every file that has a root element list person, the separate item is person. You usually give an XML ID to the person, which is either the regularized form of the name or some other indicator. You can use digits if you wish. You can use whatever you want, provided that you're consistent and provided that you give IDs that won't confuse you and that are pretty straightforward to understand, even for other encoders than you. Then you have the first name element, which could be repeated as many times as you wish in different languages. Here we have the name Theodoros, which could also be rendered in English, which could also be rendered in Latinized form as Theodorus, and as many languages as you wish. This also holds true, for example, for when we come to place names. Probably I will dwell more on that. If a city was once called Nicaea and now is Iznik, you can indicate it here in the authority list. If you wish, you can have a floroid, you can have an affiliation, you can have a birth, death, occupation, and other things are admissible here in the authority list, which then pop up as a very neat, I will show you here our Telamon list of people in a very neat table. So all the information that you have about the person can be then indexed and spit out by EFES or by platforms that do the similar job in a table form like this. If you have a occupation in different languages and the name rendered in different languages, with the change of language, this will change too. You could have a flow rate period, which is also here. And at some point, if you think it's worth it, and if you have data for it, you can have a separate item here. Okay, I got lost. Item here in the person item, a separate element and a separate place here in the table, which could say if this person is related to somebody else on the list. This will need some more doubling with the EFES tables, but it's not impossible. If you wish to do such a thing, and if you think it's worth it, because in many cases you cannot tell what are the relationships between the mentioned persons, you can do this. Yes, and I think that at some instances we have done this in Telemon, but I will have to check, and I'm not sure if I could explain you how to do it. If Martina or Irene Vayunakis, who will show up these days, can do, or we can we can ask somebody else. We can ask either Gabi or my collaborator Elena when she shows up to demonstrate the Telemon features with you. But in theory, it's doable. And when we come to places, I will show you how to do this.
Yes. We will, Mitko, sorry to interrupt you. We will talk about authority list and indexing and all of these things in 1.5 days.
Yeah.
So I mean deeper on a deeper.
Yeah.
And we will produce also some altogether.
Yeah. So, those indexes that you see in the instances which I showed you are derived either from the code of the inscriptions themselves or from the authority list which exists in the project, or they're both combined. And you will learn how to deal with that. And of course, yes, you can have just a list of names, which has the root element list nim, and then the separate items in it are nim, Ioannis, Costa, Stephanus, and so on and so forth. You can give, of course, here also XML ID to, you give XML ID once for the whole project. So if Ioannis is name 1, you use name 1 not only across the document, but across the whole project only for this name or person or whatever it is. And if you have persons in texts, I don't know if you see here, this is Deisis to Theou. Okay, we have a Deisis to do to Theou, Theodorou και Στεφάνου. This is, I think, from Iospe, Northern Black Sea coast, some of the later inscriptions. And in the text itself, you don't have the person tag, you only have the person name. And in the person name, okay, why did they choose such an example? But okay, the important thing is that here the name Theodorou, which is an abbreviation that is expanded. This is another story, and we'll talk about this also. But the name Theodorou, you need to tag it with a person name. Then you can give a reference to an XML ID existing somewhere. You can give it a type. This is an attested person. Or this is, here you see how the patronymics work. Agati or Agates, somebody, Iostis Paukou, son of Palku, whatever that is, that should be a feminine name here, but you have a name plus a patronymic, which is a very common instance in the Greek inscriptions across the Mediterranean. This and this, son of this and this, you can have the whole Agati, son of Palkus, as one personal name, and then you can have, this is a recursive tag, you can use it many times, you can have a person name within a personal name. So you can tag this whole name as somebody which is the son of somebody, together with the patronymic, and then the patronymic itself, you can also tag it as another attested persons. So you have Demetrius, son of Apollodorus. You can tag the Demetrius, son of Apollodorus as a whole, as a personal name plus patronymic, and then you can tag separately Apollodorus. And of course, you can link both in an authority file. Yeah, it is, but to be frank, I'm not that good in reading inscriptions from that period. The script holds me back, but still. So you can also have different types of personal name. You can say that this is the name of a divinity. Iovi Optimo Maximo, this is the Jupiter. And you can give it a key or a reference which says this is Jupiter. And you can specify that this is a divinity in contrast with, say, a Lucius or somebody else who is a type attested person or attested or person. Yes, here we obviously usually use this for both the pagan pantheon and the Christian divinity, and also for saints. I think in Iospe, the inscriptions for the north coast of the Black Sea, which spans across from the kingdom of Bosporus of the 1st century until late Byzantine times. I think that there is one index about pagan divinity, saints, and etc. But you can distinguish between both if you wish. Here in the type attribute, you can make as many distinctions as you wish. Here, when we go, the Emperor Verus, you can state that this is a type ruler, or a king or an emperor, or what you have. This is the Emperor Alexios, which you also can tag as, encode as a ruler. So the type attributes plays a crucial role here. And you see the names in the text, you tag them as personal name, and usually within the personal name, within the first name tag, you have a name tag, just name, with a nimref attribute, which points to a somewhat normalized, regularized form of the name. Here it is Theodoru in genitive case, and you want to say that this is an instance of the name Theodoros. So the same way you give it with the lemmas of the words, here for the personal names, you can use the nimref tag. Or you can just give it an ID whatsoever. You're not obliged to give an ID which is in the natural language of the original. Although it's, for me, I think it's recommended that the ID that you give, or the form that you give, is has some relation to what's in the text, because if you start giving IDs such as 1135, you will get confused pretty fast. But in theory, you can give whatever ID you want. And here we have the typical tripartite Roman names. You tag the whole with the personal name, first name, and each separate name with the name subelement. So the whole first name is Lucius Aelius Lamia, and each one of these separate names is tagged as a name. And you can also specify the type. the canonical example of praenomen, gentilicium, and cognomen. And you can also have both type and nimref. And here there's an example that epithets such as Pius or Felix, which in their Greek rendering are Euthyhes, Eusebes, and things like that, could be incorporated in the list of personal names of the emperors. But they could also be used as words. It's up to you to decide, actually. So yes, the gist of this is that you tag what you need to index. You tag persons if you aim at a prosopography of attested persons to whom you can point and say, okay, this is a historical person which we can identify across the corpus. You can also tag the names as such. And you can subdivide names as much or little as appropriate. You can categorize persons as much as needed. And you have authority lists which help you. Basically, the same you do with places. You have places which are mentioned in the metadata to the monument. For example, when you encode the original location, the find spot, the last recorded location, the current repository of the monument, or the places mentioned in the text, and here we will deal with the latter part. Here you see a fragment of an example. I think it's from Aphrodisias, tonen Coloneia Antiocheia Agonon Athlesas, after having performed, taken part in athletic competitions in the colony of Antioch. And here in the text, instead of person name for persons, you simply put place name for places. You can also add a regularized form with nimref, just as with the personal names. You can refer to an external authority. I forgot to mention that you can also do this with the persons, but probably this holds true more for the Byzantine scholars among you, which I think are currently the majority, but for the classical inscriptions, we don't have existing prosopographies online, but for Byzantine persons, you do have, and there Martina has put them on the links list. So, but for place names, you have the so-called gazetteer, which is basically a list of georeferenced geographical entities. Here, the most commonly used for, say, pre-modern, mostly ancient, but also early medieval topography is the Pleiades gazetteer. I've given you the link in the document, where you have an ID. It's on purpose that I chose Alexandria because there are many Alexandrias in the ancient world. But the good thing about the gazetteer is, as with any self-respecting authority list on the internet, is that for each separate instance of a separate entity, you have an ID which makes sure that you point to the exact same place to the place that you need to point to among all others that bear the same name. this is not it. I think unlocated, there are some unlocated. Alexandria Oxiana. Let us see. So yeah, Alexandria, a city founded by Alexander the Great. No, this is not it. This is not it. Alexandria is Hate. Alexandria. Okay, where is the? Why of all the different Alexandrias I cannot? Okay, in case you don't. It should be, okay, the ancient port city in Egypt's Nile Delta, founded by Esau. So this is it. And as a confirmation to it, because most of the other Alexandrias are just places mentioned somewhere, which were unlocated and unidentified. Here you have it. This is how a gazetteer works. It's not simply a list of place names with an ID to each one. There is a representative point as to latitude and longitude, which is quite precise points. And when you see the description and when you see also the representative point, which, by the way, you can copy and you put on a map of your own or do what you wish with it. And you use this representative point in the gazetteer for your purposes. Then you can copy and paste link in your code. And when an Antioch or Alexandria or Bactria or I don't know what is mentioned in your document, you can give the standard reference, which is in the Pleiades gazetteer. We have given you another gazetteer, which is for modern places, which is called geonames. If you need to refer to a modern place, for example, a place where something is found, let's say Cairo, not Alexandria, you can use the exactly same procedure with geonames. And here you have a representative point for the modern city of Alexandria in Egypt, which works more or less in the same way. But anyways, here the point is that you can give an external reference using the ref attribute to the names, the place names mentioned in your text. And of course, you can have a reference to an internal authority list, just as with the personal names. You have an authority list called places XML, and you have an item in the authority list which has this ID. You see here are some links to external resources, of which the most important probably is Pleiades, but you also have other gazetteers which might be of use to you. Trismegistos places, the Heritage Gazetteer of Libya, Pelagios Peripeo, which currently I think it's not working, but it's a remarkable thing. And yes, you can tag ethnics in the text if it's important for you. I don't know about other periods, but for ancient inscriptions, this is quite a significance to say that, for example, Demetrius the Cnidian has come to Alexandria to do this or that, and if you have a name such as Demetrius the Cnidian or Herodotus from Cumae, or something like this, you can tag the ethnicon of the person or of the whole group of persons as place name type ethnic. It is theoretically possible if you were speaking about the Cnidians or the Rhodians or the Delians or the Constantinopolitans or a group like this, it's theoretically possible to tag them as an organization, org name, but EpiDoc prefers the place name type ethnic for this purpose. So place name you can also use for this, to refer to an ethnicon which accompanies the personal name of somebody. Especially if it's of an importance to you that somebody moved from one place to another and left its written trace, left his or her written traces there. And this is just a kind of summary about all this. You can tag words, separate words. If you tag words, you can normalize them or lemmatize them with the lemma attributes, which could link to an external authority in the form of lemma reference. If you tag persons, you use the person name tag, which could then be separated as a name as many times as you wish. And much in the same way as with lemmas to words, you can give a normalized form via nimref. And you can also, but in the person name tag, you can also give a reference to an external authority. And for persons and places and etc., you can have external authority lists as well as for the dictionary entries if you wish. The same holds true for place name. You can normalize it with the nimref, just as with person name, which is equivalent to lemma for common words. And you can give reference to external sources, which are in the case of places called gazetteers. And yes. So in summary, you can tag words, name, places, etc. in a text. You can regularize them with lemma in case of the words and with nimref in case of person and place names. You can link to external or internal authority lists where unique persons and places can be identified as such. And yes, pretty much this is it. So here with this batch of information, probably we have to stop for a while, and then we'll do some more lacunae and maybe expansions of abbreviations. So here we can at least tokenize, but not necessarily lemmatize, all the words in a text. And here we can say lemma eops. I missed that. Be sure not to do this. And yes, here we can use polytonic Greek, which I don't want to dabble with right now, but we can do this. As you can see, sun and to and I don't lemmatize, because if we do lemmatize, then we would have a list of all the occurrences of the preposition soon in all the monuments, which I think it would be redundant from a user point of view. But it's in the end, it's up to you to decide. Here we first put one tag and then the other. Here we have a word into which there is the omega with iota subscript, which should be supplied. And to supply, you always must have a reason. In this case, this is because it has been lost. And then you have the words. And if you have a word which was tagged and lemmatized, and then in the lemma list you have this partially reconstructed words. Here I think we don't have such instances, but you will notice that maybe in the Aphrodisias inscriptions we'll have something like that. You'll notice that when the word has been restored partially or wholly, and if to the restoration of the word we have added an attribute of certainty, it appears as such in the list of words. Here, for example, in the inscriptions of Aphrodisias, you have agoraios, which occurs 2 times, and the second time it occurs as something like this. We have a supplied part inside the tokenized and lemmatized word, which makes it appear in square brackets also in the index, which is a very good indication that if you have something attested 2 times, one of those might be hypothetical. It might not be, the restoration could be pretty sure, but you wouldn't know this if you don't open the particular instance. And here we have a question mark, which is also visualized in the text of the inscription itself. As you see here, this is a partial restoration of a missing part of the text, which says that this is a gap, this is a lacuna of circa 15 characters. But what is important here for us is that there is a question mark to indicate that this restoration is not sure. And there is a certain way to do this. We put the certainty attributes. You can have high, low, medium, and unknown. And I would say that if you're pretty certain, you don't need to insert certainty high everywhere. I would do this if my certainty is low or unknown, which would make my restoration of this part of the inscription, na o, with a restored o, as you might remember from the original part of the text, appear with a little question mark here. So you have an attribute for certainty, which is visualized in the lighting conventions of the output, if you wish. You might not need it for the most part of your work. EpiDoc. So and so on and so forth. Let us now do the personal name. Here we have an empty tag, so there's no problem that we're surrounding it by this is a personal name. So this whole Lucio Cornelio Anulino, we tag it as a person. This is Lucius Cornelius Anulinus or Anilinus. I don't know what's the original Latin form of the name. So here we have a first name. And this is, if you click 3 times on the opening tag, you will see everything which is encompassed by the element together with the closing tag. So sometimes this is useful to see where you're at. And to this personal name, you can give a, I don't know, a reference if you know what to refer to. In this case, I don't, but you could, and you could put a URL here or a link to an authority file. Let's say persons. You need to have this file existing before doing this. So you need to have somewhere in your project, and for example, in EpiDoc, this is somewhere in web apps, root, you will see this, well, content, images and XML. This is where you store your images in your EpiDoc project, and XML has EpiDoc, which are the inscriptions proper, and authority. These are the authority files, and you must have a file here called persons, and you must have something here called as the reference you're giving. So, but this is, in this case, this is purely hypothetical, but you can do this, or you can do, let me see if I can give another reference. No, cannot. So probably when you refer to an external or an internal authority for a personal name, you have to give either of both. You cannot give both at the same time, or you have to cheat in some way to make the editor accept it. But and then every name tagged separately. So this is one personal name which consists of several elements, each of which we tag as a name. Anilino here also. And by the way, here we have a line break, which is also across a word. So here we have to do this once again. And the same with, let me do this for the line break here. But here we don't have a word separated on 2 lines, so we do away with this break now. But this Marcus Aufidius Fronto is also a first name, so we do this. And we can, what we didn't do in the previous case, but we can give the name, we can give the normalized form Marcos. This should be with a in the polytonic system with circumflex, but I'm not doing it here. We can so you can normalize all these elements of the name, and of course you can normalize the whole name as Marcus Aufidius Bassus with all these three nimrefs here, and you can also give a reference to somewhere else. So you can use nimref or ref together, but you cannot use both refs. This is only to give you a normalized head word form of the name, be it a personal name or a place name. And here, okay, we haven't. This one here is probably a mistake, because you see you have an opening tag name which is not followed by the respective closing tag, so it will give us an error. And here we can also have nimref, which in Greek would be fronton. Okay, and of course we have here one abbreviation and one supplied reason lost, and we will do this now, and then we will see how to deal with the and you see that the code starts looking, and we even haven't bothered to lemmatize these, and the code starts looking a bit scary. So you have to pay attention and not lose your track. Yes, yes. Oh, sorry, I haven't seen this, Janan. Please.
Oh, thank you. I have a question. What is the purpose of tagging each word as word?
You don't...
And also, well, I couldn't really understand the difference between tagging lemma and numref.
Nimref is for first name and place name only. I'm starting for the simpler question. Nimref is for when you have first name or place name or something like this. Lemma is when you have a common word, such as kataskevazo, idios, evchome, and it's for words other than names, let's say. But basically, it does the same thing. It provides a word, be it a common word or a name, with its form, which could be used as a dictionary head word. If you have the name or the word in dative case, for example, it gives the nominative. If you have some special way of orthography in the monument, you can normalize this. But for the words, for the common words, you use W and lemma, and for the names, you use first name or place name, and then nimref. This is what I hope that this is clear enough for this question. Is it? Do I need to elaborate on this? Sorry, is it okay? So basically, they do the same thing, the lemma and the nimref, but they're used with different tags. Did you get it?
Sorry, my connection failed.
Oh, okay.
I missed. But
Did
it's okay.
you manage to hear me?
I don't want to take your time.
No. I mean, did you manage to hear me that when I explained that lemma goes with
Lemma, and also what is then the practical purpose of marking, tagging word with W? What's the practical purpose of it?
Well, if you want to have a list of words or of word forms, you need to do this. If you don't want to have a list of words, then you don't have to do this, I think.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, for all for the purpose of tagging, of semantic tagging, we will see together like tomorrow, because from this kind of tagging there will be like an output in EFES, and all the practical purpose of this kind of semantic tagging is to generate automatic dynamic indices, so that all the information that you want to be indexed in your corpus can be done consequently and coherently. Yes.
Yes. Other than that, if you think you don't need a respective index, you don't need to tag.
Yeah. So, for example, EPIDoc does not tag words because we don't need them, and we kind of only lemmatize the words that are not, normalized in our seals. But still, I mean, nothing is compulsory. Many things are like encouraged. But yes, I mean, I've never seen, pretty much as Mitko said, a corpus without at least a prosopographic index and a geographic index. So let's just stick to these, and I think we will be all right. But and on the other hand, one of the purposes of EFES, even if you don't want to publish your corpus, your epigraphic corpus in EFES, is still a very, very good tool for the workflow, because all of this tagging can get you crazy at some point. And when you have EFES, you have an output, an immediate output, and you will see once we will do it tomorrow together, you will see that all of this tagging has a meaning and has a respective output that you can generate in a matter of seconds. So don't be scared.
Yes, here you see it's a jumble. You can get lost in this pretty easy, especially if it's important for you, as it is for most of the epigraphic projects, to lemmatize every word. But when you, as Martina said, when you see this indexed and displayed in EFES, you see when you forgot to make an additional space and things like that. So yes, and for example, here what we have, I'll just open the plain text. So this is during the consulship of Lucius Cornelius Anilinus for the second time, and Marcus Ovidius Fronto. It's not said, but obviously for the first time. And you also have, if it's important for your project and for some reason, you can also tag the numeral here, if you wish, as num. And some projects have numerals indexed separately. As you can see here, in our project, we also have numerals, but you don't need to do this, okay? Or numerals, maybe we did away with them. After all, yeah, okay. Yeah, see, for example, we don't have numerals, but Aphrodisias has, because they decided at some point that this is important for them, for whatever reasons, maybe. Yeah, here we have a Roman numeral. Yes, yes. We will now, the last thing that we'll do before the break, and I'm sorry if this is a bit overwhelming for you, but you will have plenty of time to train on this, is that we have this abbreviations going on. For example, here in the name Lucius and in the name Marcus, following the Roman manner, they have been abbreviated. A simple abbreviation is like this. You have the part of the abbreviation which is on the stone. You have the part of the abbreviation which is understood and it's not on the stone, and in the diplomatic edition of the text, you don't say it. And then you have the whole form. And you use 3 different tags for it. The whole form is tagged as expand. The form which is present is tagged as abbre, and the part of the abbreviation which is abbreviated and is not seen on the stone but is restored by the editors in round brackets is tagged as X. So yeah, if we want to do this Lucius, I will just put it on a separate line. Okay, this is a name. We don't want to lose the tags of a name. I'll just make it like this in order for it to be more comfortable. We want to encode this abbreviation. This is on the stone. This is what we expand. We, of course, take away the brackets, and this whole thing is expand. This thing, which is on the stone, is the abbreviation itself, and this is the abbreviated part which is expanded. So it looks more or less like this. This is an abbreviation. The whole thing which needs to be presented in a way like this in our edition, we encode as expand. Then the part which is not in the brackets, we encode like abr, and the part which is in brackets, we encode as X. And there are some more awkward ways to do this. If we have an abbreviation which we don't know how to expand, we use simply the abr tag. And in the critical edition this is with brackets that contain an empty space, because we don't want how to expand it. Okay, and then if you have, I don't know if we need to do this. Does this occur in Greek and Byzantine inscriptions at all? The repetition of the last letter when the abbreviation is of something in plural?
Not that I know of.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a bit more complex. In the critical edition, you should have this normalized thing with 1G, because Aug is Augusti, not Augustus. But in the diplomatic edition, you need to have both G's. How you do away with this? The whole thing is expand, just as with other abbreviations. The part which is on the stone, you write down as AUGG with 2 G's and everything in ABR element. But the second G, which should be present in the diplomatic text, but not in the critical edition, you put an additional tag to it, which is AM, which stands for something which I forgot what it was, but this is because...
Abbreviation mark.
Abbreviation mark, okay, thank you. And the thing which is in brackets and is not present on the actual inscription on the stone is in X. So much the same as with the previous, but you have one thing in addition, one more sub-element, which is a daughter to a BR abbreviation, which is AM abbreviation mark, which appears in the diplomatic edition, but is absent from the critical edition. So when the transformation scenario goes through the codes to get the critical edition, this tag here says, okay, when you do the critical version of the text, when you do the interpretive version of the text, omit this. This should not be here and go straight to this. But when you do the diplomatic edition, don't omit this, because there are separate transformation scenarios, as you will see, for interpretive and diplomatic, as you know, in our project that is based on EFES, you have one text here and another text here, and this are derived from each other. Rather, this is derived from this by making it inscriptio continua and so on and so forth. So you need two scenarios at work which yield two separate results. And in most cases, this is not so complex, but when it comes to abbreviations, when you might have additional letters in the diplomatic version of the text, this counts. And this is the way to do it. Okay, what else about abbreviations? There are. Okay, thankfully no more. So, okay, do you have any comments, questions, additional remarks up to now? If not, maybe it's time to have a little break.
We can adjourn until I don't remember anymore. It was
half an hour.
Half an hour, okay. Till half an hour. So at 5:05 we can meet here again, and we will I mean, do everything that Mitko just did, but on our laptops, and we won't be broadcasting. So as we were saying before, don't be shy and ask everything you would like to know.
Yes.
And most important thing is that everyone has oxygen installed, and we will just like screen share and do one inscription all together, and we will see. Okay.
If you have your own inscriptions, it will be great.
Better.
Yeah.
And
you can think of something.
So see you later. And Mitko, can you stay like for 1 second?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Bye. Ciao.